as you may be aware, Lumezi was holding by-elections, and the UPND has emerged victorious. So UPND's Rufeo wins the Lumezi by-election. That simply means Munia Zulu has officially lost his seat, at least based of those votes. So breaking Rufeo Ngoma of the UPND has been elected Lumezi Member of Parliament with 11,521 votes against his closest opponent, Goodson Banda of NCP, that's the Alliance Partners, Letonse Alliance individual, getting 6,821 votes. And then Mulima just remarks to say, the difference is too different. So the winning candidate almost got like twice as much as the follow-up. But the conversation that has been persisting in the nation is this that has to do with the grave of Edgar Shagalungu. As you may be aware, when it was announced that Edgar Shagalungu had passed on, the government started putting in place protocols for his body to be put to rest at the Embassy Park. That's where all the other heads of state have been put to rest. So once the grave was done and everything else was done, then there was that back and forth between the family and government, meaning the body has not been brought into Zambia. Then again, if you remember the past Wednesday, there was supposed to be a burial that was supposed to take place in South Africa. The sort of grave that they had done in South Africa hasn't been communicated. It hasn't secreted the public light. So no one knows what sort of design, but people have been having conversation to say there are two graves. There's one in South Africa and one in Zambia. So people have been weighing in. So Reverend Walter Mwambazi was like, in my view, the ongoing concern and the obvious commentary over the impasse between 6th Republican President Dr. Edgar Shagalungu's burial and the growing narrative of lies. Mostly, what sparked this conversation was a podcast that Dr. Bishop Eddie Mlenga featured on with DJ Shosta, where he explained to say it's a very spiritual risk to have two empty graves, like the way we have at Embassy Park there, and then also in South Africa. Those graves will start demanding being filled by. It's pretty much put it across to say it's a high risk to have those two empty graves, both in Zambia and in South Africa. The spiritual representation of that does not sit well in the spiritual realm. So that's what he put across. And it's from that conversation that Bishop Eddie Mulenga put across that where people are weighing and having their opinion with regard to the graves. So he says, this is according to Reverend Walter, he says, the narrative of lies and dead body rituals and now the empty grave spirit of death theory. This came to public after Dr. Bishop Eddie Mulenga spoke about it with DJ Shosta on his podcast. While I'm certainly well versed and familiar with the occultic and the matter of concerning such issues, I'm 100% in agreement with an article that was written by Jacob PCM Tutu. So the mystery of the empty grave and the spirit of death and the resurrection. So the person goes, recently Zambia has witnessed heightened tension surrounding the repatriation of the remains of 6th Republican President Edgar Shagalungu. While the government prepared the tomb at Embassy Park and his burial for his burial, Lungu family has resisted and repeatedly seeking to bury him in South Africa, the country where he passed away. That's in South Africa. Their resistance is largely due to desire to keep President Hakainde Hichilema, Lungu's fierce political rival, away from the burial process. As political as this may seem, it sparked spiritual interpretations, particularly concerning the empty grave prepared for Lungu at Embassy Park. Notably, Bishop Eddie Mulenga of Liberty Christian Center warned on June 26th that the unoccupied tomb invokes a spirit of death over the nation in a country that is officially a Christian nation, but deeply spiritual and susceptible, a blend of religious beliefs and more. Such claims resonate with me mainly. So it goes to highlight some of the things. And then also the Fred member also says the body pretty much, that's the conversation that's been persisting. So referring to the tussle between the Zambian government and the Lungu family for the body or the remains of the late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. So it goes to highlight, um, according to that article, the biblical empty grave declares victory over death and not defeat by itself. It is a divine statement that Christ did not just die for us, but he died with us as us and rose with us. So those are the points that he highlights, and then pretty much that conversation went on with regard to the empty grave, and you can see the two pictures put across. The one above, that's the one which was prepared for ECL, which is empty, and obviously the one that represents at the bottom of Jesus Christ at the bottom there. Then Kasonde Mwenda of the EFF also weighed in with regard to the same conversation, because pretty much everyone is having this conversation, because for now it looks like the standoff between government and the Lungu family is waiting for the court session, because exactly today, next week, the Zambian Attorney General is going to be in court with the Lungu family in South Africa. So probably they're just preparing their court statements. So next week, today, you expect that court session. But for now, the conversation has just persisted with regard to the body of the late president and the graves that have been prepared. No one knows what sort of grave was prepared in South Africa, but everyone has seen what is done at Embassy Park. So Kasonde Mwenda says the big question, because why is government desperately fighting over Edgar Lungu's deceased body? Kasonde Mwenda, EFF president, 27th June 2025. Zambia has now crossed a dangerous threshold. The burial of former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu Edgar Chagwa Lungu, scheduled to take place in South Africa, was officially halted not by the family but by desperate Zambian government of Hakainde Hichilema. The Attorney General of the Republic of Zambia, Mulilo Kabesha, successfully secured an injunction from the High Court in Pretoria to stop the burial. This is no longer a legal strategy. It is an international embarrassment and a national tragedy. The question every Zambian must now ask is, why is the Zambian government so desperate to control Edgar Lungu's corpse? Kasonde Mwenda asks there. This is no longer about state owners. This is no longer about protocol or patriotism. This is raw and settling political power play over the dead man's body, and risks of insecurity, desperation, and a disturbing attempt to rewrite a legacy by force. Let us speak plainly. What kind of government fights its own the dead while it's failing to save the living? The injustice offered that President Lungu must be buried in Zambia with full honors is thin and unconvincing. Lungu died in South Africa. His family his family, not the state, should have the final say in the burial arrangements. Yet the state is like a prodigal. A paranoid regime frightened even by a lifeless body has evoked courts and lawyers and diplomatic channels to seize control. And for what? Kasonde Mwenda goes on to ask there. And then obviously the images of one of his Edgar Lungu's daughter there interacting with, should have been the Chief Justice at the time, the lady you see there. If I'm not mistaken, Irene Mambirima. I stand to be corrected. And then you can see the former head of state there, Edgar Chagwa Lungu, and then Chieso, the lawyer there, should have been at a graduation ceremony of some sort. It goes further to say, we mourn a man, but we must fight for a nation. That's Kasonde Mwenda, economic freedom fighters president there. So with regard to the grave. And then on the other hand, last night, a press statement came from State House. So Office of the President, State House, press release, dated 26th June 2025, Lusaka. President Hichilema guides Justice Minister to defer Bill 7 of 2025 for broader national consultation. So President Hakainde Hichilema has guided the Minister of Justice, Honorable Princess Kasune MP, in consultation with Parliament to defer the ongoing process of Bill 7 of 2025 to allow for more consultation with Zambian people. This decision underscores the government's commitment to fostering a participatory and consensus-driven process in shaping and transforming the legislative reform. So that's the information that came from State House last night, to just simply say the head of state had guided the Minister of Justice to defer Bill 7. As you may be aware, that constitutional reforms that have been debated for a while. So when that statement came out, he was directing the Minister of Justice, the lady that you see on the left there. And then people were wondering to say what prompted that. Obviously, UPND praised the president to say he's more listening, because during the week, a number of CSOs had visited State House with regard to Bill 7, in as much as the part of the conversation was to do with the burial of the late President Edgar Chagwa. Mostly they went to see the head of state with regard to Bill 7, obviously, and it's out of those engagements that came through. And then Kalemba says the president's decision to press a reset button in the constitutional amendment process underscores government's commitment to inclusive and open dialogue. Justice Minister Princess Kasune. So that's a lady on the left there next to the president who put up that statement to say that it shows goodwill from the president. And these are some of the images that came from when the president was interacting with some of the CSOs and stakeholders and as part of the constitutional process. But this is a judgment that came from that case, according to what was published here. So according to the courts, this is what they had to say. The court declared that the ongoing constitutional amendment process is not consultative and has not been broad-based and therefore unconstitutional. So this is a judgment that came from the courts. This is the day after. So when the president had put up that statement last night, this morning it seems like there was a verdict because there were people that had sued the government with regard to that. So and then they went further to say this is the judgment. The second point was that the court ordered that the respondent halts the ongoing constitutional amendment process and embark on rather more consultative and broad-based approach. And then each party to bear its own cost. So some of the people that were fighting, that have taken this court cases, that individual there, including Munia Zulu, the incarcerated Lumezi member of parliament, those are the people that were pushing for this lawsuit against the government. Seems like, and they've won, and they got that verdict. And obviously, Mao Samba weighs in. He was just simply saying, dancing. If you remember when Bill 10 failed during Edgar Chagwa regime, the European MPs were dancing at Community House, President Hakainde Hichilema's house at the time. So Mao Samba was like, it's just that we are mourning. Otherwise, our mood after defeating Bill 7, so he says they have defeated it, but really it's the court process that you can attribute that to, not to say that no. If it had come for a vote in parliament, the UPND had the votes, they would have passed that bill. So it's because of that court case, really, if you are being honest here. Then Fred Member weighs in. So after the verdict just came today. And then that letter came last night from State House. So Fred Member asked to say, a day before constitutional court judgment, and then he tags President Hakainde Hichilema, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema announces deferment of Bill 7 to allow more consultation. What does this mean? What a coincidence, he has to say. The night before, the president highlights the same things, and then the following day, the verdict comes. And then Fred Member continues to ask to say, did Mr. Hichilema know about the judgment before it was delivered? If so, what are the implications? Fred Member, president of the Socialist Party. So he asks, say, is it a coincidence that the night before the president puts up that letter to say there's need for more consultation process, and then the verdict that comes as of today highlights the same point to say there is need for a broad-based consultation, and that's why it had halted that. So Fred asked to say, did the president have access to this verdict prior to it being rendered today or what? And if so, what are the implications? That's Fred Member's questions there. As you may know, a number of people that had traveled to South Africa for the funeral are now back. So these are some of the images. Just stand by, let me show you as they were coming back into the country from South Africa. So it looks like a number of them use the same plane, the Zambia Airways plane there. So opposition officials, including members of parliament, return home after attending the requiem service of the late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. So the plane was filled with most of them as they return. Since the burial didn't take place, you can see Bini Wampundu there. I don't know the other two individuals, but yeah, as they were boarding the plane. So the people that are just left in South Africa, as of the information that we have at this moment, is the First Lady and probably the same people that were there during the negotiation. The rest of the people that were around that had gone for the burial, the one that was supposed to take place on Wednesday, are back in the country, most of them at least. And then the rest have to step back because they have been sued in South African courts, as you may be aware. So it's likely most of Edgar Chagwa Lungu's children are still in South Africa to attend the court sessions that are coming up. And then Kasonde Mwenda goes further to say, cancelled mourning extended for almost a month to 18th July, pending South African court determination of the matter. So as you may be aware, that's one of the dates that has been floated as the verdict date for that. And then you can see Brian Munduvile there, part of the people that were flying back to the country from what was supposed to be a burial of Edgar Chagwa Lungu, which did happen. And then Fred Member reports were back from Johannesburg. Thank you for our good wishes and our travel messes. We're blessed. Have a blessed day ahead. That's Fred Member just reporting back when they landed back in Zambia. That's Fred Member on the plane. They were flying back probably at the time that they landed. And then George Mutonga says the government and family have come to an agreement. And then he just responds with a big flow on beam to say, So as you may be aware, part of the statement that was put across by the Attorney General was that the whole purpose of government halting the burial process in South Africa that was supposed to take place on Wednesday was to allow for the negotiations to continue between government and the family. In as much as, yes, the court process is going to take place, but if an agreement can be reached prior to that, that's the ideal situation that the government of Zambia is hoping for. But otherwise, if not, then the court process has to run its course. So pretty much the strategy was for more engagements, and if they come to an agreement, probably the court will just be informed to say an agreement has been reached, and then the body is likely to be repatriated to Zambia. If not, that entire court process has to run its course. And then in the Daily Nation, Edgar Chagwa Lungu's burial is now in August, so people are asking to say, will the burial be in August, considering that if the verdict comes on 18th July, people have to fly back for that burial again. So we wait. And then proverbs have been going on. He who peels our groundnuts for a blind man must be whistling all the time to prove that he is not the one eating them. So proverbs keep flying around. And then Newsdigger says, we will confront Patriotic Front after Lungu has been buried, government. So that was in the Newsdigger to say the Patriotic Front is going to be confronted by government after the burial. And then the PF responded. They say, we know we will be arrested after we bury Lungu, Patriotic Front. So it seems like there's a lot of back and forth between government and the Patriotic Front. Say they are aware that they are on the arrest list. At least all that is holding it is the burial of the late president there. What else is in the news? The Daily Liberation say, do not remove Lungu's body from mortuary, Mumbipiri. If government wins a case to repatriation of his remains to Zambia. So Mumbipiri is advising whoever is in South Africa to say they shouldn't remove his body. I doubt that will be possible if the government wins that case. So, but anyway, that's also what she had to say. And the mass newspaper says it's shameful. UPND shouldn't use force to take over Lungu's body, says Shakas. So what else? Real Times, who replaces Munia Zulu as the ruling UPND takes any lead. As you may be aware now, it's confirmed the UPND has won those votes. So Munia Zulu is no longer member of parliament officially. There's a replacement. And then no RIP yet with regard to Edgar Chagalungu. The court case proceeds. And then when the wicked rule, people groom, yes. And then also Hakainde Hichilema incapable of giving Edgar Chagalungu a dignified send-off. And that's still in the mass newspaper. And that's the news. What is the rest of the members of parliament keep coming back? Most of the people that had traveled are now back in the country, but most of them had come last night, but a good number are coming through today. So just leaving the family back in South Africa there. And then obviously the Chimbuya was also taking place in South Africa. Makebi Zulu, the lawyer that has been sued, was poured powder by
Okay, that's fine. That's fine, but yeah. Thanks, Pinwell. Thanks. Thanks, Pinwell. Thank you very much.